Hello, once again, I'm Doc Rodden, and this is Horror News Radio, the official GRUESOME Magazine podcast. Back with me again this week are the scariest, goriest, bloodiest co-host on the net. Welcome to episode 475 as we review Antlers from director Scott Cooper. Joining me tonight is award-winning filmmaker Christopher G. Moore, making all the horns. All the horns. How you doing, sir?
Just call me Bullwinkle. I'm doing wonderful. I mean, I'm doing more wonderful than the people in this movie.
Oh my gosh.
Which, it definitely puts everybody's lives in a better perspective. But yeah, I'm doing good.
Yes, we nominate Antlers for the feel-good movie of the year.
Yeah.
What we're going to do tonight, sir, is we're going to give our first impressions on the movie. That will be spoiler-free. And then we will dive into a discussion and spoilers at that point. And then we'll wrap things up with our final thoughts, our score 1 to 5, and a favorite scene. There's a few to pick. But before we do that, if you are watching this and for the first time, we hope you enjoyed not only this review, but many others we have on the site. And we hope that you can subscribe, hit the like button, or share with a friend, and that will help us out greatly. And of course, most of all, we want to hear your thoughts about the movie. Leave those comments down below. What film are we talking about? It's Antlers from Fox Searchlight Pictures. I think Fox may officially be dropped off of there. I'm not really sure. Available in theaters beginning October 29th, 2021. The synopsis: in an isolated Oregon town, a middle school teacher and her sheriff brother become embroiled with her enigmatic, oh my God, English student who dark secrets lead to terrifying encounters with an ancestral creature. I think curse actually works too. Directed by Scott Cooper, written by Henry Chaisson, Nick Antosca, and Scott Cooper. Cast includes Keri, Jesse Plemons, Jeremy T. Thomas, Graham Greene, Scott Haze, Rory, Cochrane, Amy Madigan, and Sawyer Jones. I like the new poster. That the new poster is really awesome. It's accurate.
It is accurate.
Yes.
So since this is Fox, this is coming on Disney Plus, right?
Disney Plus. I don't think so. Well, go ahead, sir, and give us your first impressions of Antlers.
I was blown away by this film. I mean, it is definitely not. It's not the feel good film of the year. It's the feel bad for people film of the year. But I don't know. I just kind of love. I mean, this film is a slow burn, and I've heard a few people. There's a few people that don't like the film or don't like it because of the slow burn aspect of it. But I like that because I think you're getting into the lives of these people in this environment. This dreary town where, everybody seems to have issues, and you have this little kid who's having issues and at home for specific reasons, as well as at school. And then you have this teacher who's trying to do the best she can, is trying to get to these kids. And she's got issues herself, due to her past. And so, it's a very dreary but atmospheric, interesting story. This isn't spoiler because they kind of reveal it a little bit in the trailers, but it deals with like the Wendigo myth and that kind of thing. But I was blown away by the performances in this. I think I will say this is Keri Russell's one of her best performances of anything I've seen her in. She's definitely no longer Felicity based on this performance. And that little kid, Jeremy T. Thomas, is amazing. You really feel for this kid, but also he's this kid. He's trying to do the best he can for his family. And, he's trying to, he has fear and stuff, but he's also kind of but he's also messed up because of everything that's happening. And you have a lot of really wonderful performances by other people like Jesse Plemons, who plays, Keri Russell's brother. Graham Greene has a smaller part, because they actually supposedly had a Native American advisors to sort of bring forth this sort of Native American myth. Or I guess to some people it might not be a myth, it might be a real thing. So, and also I didn't realize Roy Calhoun. I was like, where have I seen this guy? He's from CSI Miami.
Oh, really?
I know him from
Rory
somewhere.
Cochrane?
Like, yeah, this guy's played a cop before, and I was like, I feel like I've seen this guy before. And but yeah, and I will say the creature effects are some of the most unique creature effects I've seen in a very long time. And they're very iconic. And they do a very Jaws thing with them. They, they really only show bits and pieces as it goes along. But I really, really love this film. And regardless of the dark and dreariness of the storyline and some of the decisions some of the characters have to make, I was really blown away. I think it's a well-crafted horror story with some really great gore, some great like transformation type stuff and creature stuff, and also just some amazing performances based on all the issues that happen in this. I mean, you really feel for these characters. It's heartbreaking, some of the situations some of these characters have to put themselves into. But yeah, I can't say enough good things about this. I mean, it's not going to make you, singing singing happy songs when you come out of the theater, but it'll be very memorable. And I think cinematography is amazing. There's so much that they tell without telling. This film is a true representation of a showing, instead of saying stuff. Because they do that visually through so many different parts of the film. So yeah, I love this film.
There is a lot to recommend for Antlers. The pacing is not one of them. I do think that the pacing will be an issue for a lot of people. It is very slow paced. Yeah. It is, it does a deep dive into our main characters, which is Keri Russell, Jeremy T. Thomas as Lucas, and Jesse Plemons as Paul as well. I think all three of them get a pretty good amount of screen time to establish their character and the relationships between them. And the movie would be, it would really be a detriment if those three actors weren't so damn good, right? Because their performances are riveting. I was in a small audience. There was only 7 people in the theater, which is a shame that more people aren't seeing this film. But they were all glued to it. Everybody was really sucked into the story, which is a good sign. They were very talkative before, so got them into it. It's really Jeremy T. Thomas is the glue. I mean, he's extraordinary in this. It is really a very strong performance, and what he has to deal with is unimaginable at times. I don't know how they got the performance out of him. It's a dark, very twisted. It's a twisted character, but I don't mean that in a dangerous way. He's damaged, right? Because he's basically in a position where there's no win, right? It's really awful what he's in, and he's trying to do his best and doing really great work. Matter of fact, it probably wouldn't have been a problem if somebody else hadn't stepped in, which is always the case. Damn it.
Yeah.
And when it comes around to the finale, the special effects do not disappoint. They do not disappoint. But at the same time, I think a lot of people are going to struggle with the volume of the story because it doesn't really have a lot to say, and a lot to really leave you with. It's just so it's so dreary and so dour and so downbeat, and downtrodden. It really for some people it's going to be a very hard film to consume because it's just one of those films. I think it's a great monster movie. It's one of those very intelligent. It treats the the story and the characters with a lot of respect and thoughtfulness, and it just really, it doesn't play, fast and loose with anything, and it gets behind the mythology, it gets behind the characters and the scenery and the life they're living. So there's a lot to enjoy with this movie, as long as you don't expect to be in a happy go lucky place at the end. So I guess I'm saying I liked it, but I think I don't think I quite enjoyed it enough. Does that make sense?
Well, I guess it's yeah, I guess it's what you mean by enjoyment, because you can appreciate movies like, films like Seven.
Mm-hmm.
Their parts aren't really enjoyable per se, but you enjoy the storytelling and how it takes you deep into the bowels of especially this community. I mean, and you say there's just like there is stuff, there is meaning to some stuff, because if you think about it, there is an underlying meaning of like, what if you're a young kid and your parents a druggie, and you're having to take care of your druggie parent,
Mm-hmm.
and so if you trade that out and you add the kind of the monster aspect of it, it's sort of, it adds that, it has that interesting parallel to that. But yeah, it's dark and dreary, but I don't know. I guess maybe I found enjoyment that it was taking its time to sort of like let us follow along with these characters and their day-to-day activities. And because I mean, this could have easily been something like Mimic, or one of these films where it's a creature film and it's fast paced and the editing's, going to this or that. It's like Alien or something. But I don't think this film was meant to be that. And I think that's why people like Guillermo del Toro is like a executive producer, or at least he put his name on it to get it out there for people to see, because of just the storytelling. Because visually they do that. There's parts where you learn bits and pieces about the characters through visual things, and we're thrown right into it in the very beginning. You don't really have a huge explanation for how things play out until later, with a little bit of flashbacks and stuff. But I think, you have these characters, you see them having to deal with their situations, and some of it's done through not much dialogue in parts, and I kind of like that, and I think, yeah, when it gets towards probably the last third or whatever, it gets more into your traditional Aliens type scenarios with dealing with a monster and that kind of stuff, and there's more people that end up getting ripped apart or eaten or stuff like that. But I don't know, for this one I just, despite the darkness, you feel for these characters, and if you try to put yourself in their shoes, I'm not sure, as if I was a little kid, I'd be able to do the things he's doing. I mean, if your little brother, it's like, help me, I was like, oh God, I feel really bad. I mean, what would you do in that kind of situation? And you have this strong, scared little kid who's just trying to keep his family together, and that's admirable. But at the same time, it's so heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking. Yeah.
I think heartbreaking is the best adjective for this film. It's a heartbreaking story. It's dark and dreary, yeah, but visually it's really interesting. And this creature they've created, and the transformation aspects of it are kind of interesting. There's a, I think we're already in Spoilerville.
Yeah, we're in spoilers, so if you're listening,
okay,
we are going to spoil it. Yeah.
Okay. The glowing part, of the creature, and
yes, and all the little like ashes that flow off.
Yeah,
of them.
the ash stuff. I mean, there's just like visually, there's so many interesting things. Or I mean, there's even a part towards the end where the monster's still wearing the face.
Oh, that was so creepy.
Which kind of reminds me a little bit of Krampus. How Krampus wears that kind of fake face, and it's so creepy. Where there's a part where he just rips it off. It's like, oh God, and just, yeah, and antlers is definitely a good adjective for this creature too, because he'll stab the shit out of you if he gets near you. But and there's some really sort of brutal, heartbreaking decisions that happen at the end. It's like, oh my gosh, I mean, I think they handled it really well, because I was like, oh gosh, this could be really hard to watch.
Yeah,
at the very end.
I think that is what really caught my attention. Is at the end they go for these
There's balls to this.
Yeah, right, exactly. And the confrontation, or the conflict that our character Julia has to deal with, and Lucas too, for that matter, is really just like, it's also the theme of the story. It's like, where is that line, where you help a family member that you, or someone that you love, or you do what you got to do to survive, right? So
well, and yeah, I mean, you have Keri Russell's character, who plays Julia, who basically ran away from some of her issues involving her father, and now she's confronting this new issue of another father figure, per se, that she's got to deal with, and she's a teacher. Her main job is to keep kids safe.
Yep.
So there's an interesting, position she gets herself into, and I just love that. I love that, these kind of interesting characters, and then there's this sort of the issues between her and her brother that are kind of silently dealt with. I just love that aspect of it, But yeah, I don't know. I just felt like this film had some real cojones by the end of it. It's like, wow, they went there. They're not shying away from this the way it plays out. I was like, holy shit. I would never, I mean, but I don't know. I really was, I was really admired some of the storytelling in this, and I admired that it takes that dark and dreary approach, and it's very slow paced. Yeah. But for some reason I kind of like that. I mean, I kind of like slow burns films in general sometimes, as long as it's done in the right way. But I don't know, something about it. I just these lives, these people are, I mean, you watch a lot of these sort of dreary dramas that I can't watch, but this had a different aspect of it. And I think, like you said earlier, I think it comes down to the characters. You care about these characters in this world. You feel for them.
Definitely.
And I think because of that aspect of it, you want to see how it plays out, and you kind of want a happy ending by the end of it. Yeah, and then there's some really wonderful sequences. There's a nice sequence where they're watching a film in the school, and it goes to what's happening in the house, and it's like, there's some just some wonderful sequences that are just visually played out really well. And also just how they hide the monster and stuff, and maybe that's just out of budget constraints, but I think it's very Jaws like. You only
they're very similar, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I like that, because you get enough to understand, but you don't get the full shot. But when you do, it delivers. So that's thankful. It's not prophecy, right? You don't get the meat bear. This thing is frightening. I do wish they didn't all have to go to the shed. I felt like they did that 3 times. Let's go to the shed. Let's go to the shed. Let's go to the shed.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it didn't really bother me that much. I mean,
dude, it was scary though. That was tense. All the scenes in the shed were tense.
But you don't know. Yeah, you don't know where the hell that thing's going to come from or come at you, and I think also it's like, because the monster's sort of connection to the little, was it Lucas's little brother or whatever? It's kind of horrible bait to bring people to the shed in general. So
but it is interesting that even though Frank has turned into this monster, that he still wants to keep the family together. And
that's that weird thing. It's like they still want to keep it together, even though it's, that there's, I don't know if humanity is the right word for that, but there's still that connection there. It's not one of those things to where when you become this monster, like sometimes like The Thing or something, you you become this new monster. You don't really care about the connections you had before. But this one, you still have that connected part of it. So that I think that adds an extra level to the monster that you don't see in a lot of these monster movies, where they still have that little bit of connection. I mean, it kind of reminds maybe the Fly a little bit, I guess.
A little bit, yeah.
You can see a little bit of that, sort of like he still wants to be the father figure of sorts. He's a plucked up father at this point.
Yeah, very much. But it does go back to your analogy that, he's basically, the father figure is a drug addict of sorts. It's and in this case, he's actually become a physical monster, but yet he still thinks of his family, just does bad things.
Well, and it also
not
goes
necessarily should be there, right?
Well, yeah, and they, I mean, towards the beginning of the film, they mentioned that the reason that they never took the kids away from him, despite his, issues with drugs or creating drugs, is because they just felt they didn't see any other option for the kids. So it's kind of weird. It's a similar situation, except Julia's like, no. You're not the right father figure.
The system failed these kids. The system failed the kids. And you could see her connection with him too, because she sees a lot of herself in him, and I appreciated that, and I appreciated like she was watching him, like that in that movie scene when they're watching a movie, he's in there doing something, and she's not watching a movie or any of the kids. She's focused on him, trying to figure out what's going on. And then Amy Madigan has a pretty creepy scene as the principal, and Graham Greene as Warren Stokes. He's like the retired sheriff, right? Before,
he's retired sheriff.
Yeah, but he brings all the he brings what little exposition this movie has. But it was really well done though, and it has that great line about the myth. For you, yeah.
Well, and they also didn't go down that trope where he would like show up at the end or something like some of these movies, I was like, I kept expecting him to, and I was like, okay, well, I give them props for not falling down that sort of trope well of the person showing up to help or maybe getting killed in the process of trying to help.
I was actually happy that they didn't do that, because I was feeling that too.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping too, but again, the certain expectations you have in a storytelling doesn't play out normally, and they go in places I didn't think the movie would go by the end of it.
Yeah, and I wish Dave was here, because I think Dave would really appreciate the special effects. It feels like they're very practical. They're like a mechanical creature or a large puppet. But it
feels like it might be sort of like what Del Toro does, where it's like maybe a combination of the two in parts. But I would, because I kept trying to see in certain scenes if it was how practical it was, because there were certain movements and stuff I thought maybe there might be, but I'd love to see some behind the scenes stuff of the creation of that creature, because it's such an elaborate, interesting creature. It's a little bit xenomorph. It's a little bit Krampus. It's a lot of different things, but then it's its own thing, especially the antlers and that kind of thing. So I think it's probably one of the better representations of like Wendigo in any.
I think so. Yeah.
In any form of cinema, I think it's ever been created.
I think so,
in my opinion. So,
yeah. The only thing I will say I could do without is the little finale stinger thing that it gave us with.
Yeah.
With Paul. I was like, I mean, I get it.
In case this makes money, let's.
I get it.
But at the same time, I mean, like, I don't know. I don't really,
And Jesse acted so monotone. It was almost lulling me to sleep. He's just so, I don't know how to explain it, but he didn't have any, peaks and valleys to his delivery. It was really.
You mean the whole film?
Yeah, throughout the film, his dialogue.
I felt like it's his character was. I think.
Well, I think so too, but it was so weird, right?
Well, I mean, if you see him in other things, he's definitely much different. I just felt like I I think he's a very closed off character,
Mhm.
based on everything there's a point where he talks about, you don't know how much I've gone through too, as opposed to his sister. But I didn't have a problem with that. I thought that was just part of his character traits, of who he is. He's very closed off and probably just as screwed up as the rest of those characters in that town.
Well, everybody. Well, to be fair, the entire town was pretty much low key.
Well, but I will say there's some, despite the dreariness, there's one beautiful moment where she gets ice cream for the kid,
Mm-hmm.
and she has this sort of conversation about like, hey, my favorite vegetable is ice cream or something like that.
Yep.
And she gets him to actually smell, and I don't know, you can sort of see her talent as a teacher. She's trying to break through this kid, and I think that's one of the few moments of like, where you see the real humanity in these characters. You see that they're wanting to be happy, but despite what life throws at them.
Yeah, and you see a connection build with that conversation between these two. There's a commonality that they both share, and you see a trust. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's just just a page of dialogue, and all these characters are woven together. It's really, really fascinating. That was one of the better moments, character wise, I think. Very much. Yeah. All right, well, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Let's give our final thoughts, our score 1 to 5, and our favorite scene. Christopher, you are up first.
I think I said it online, even though I've seen a few haters. This is one of my favorite films of the year. It's already in my top 5.
Oh wow, nice 5.
It's I think it's a well-crafted story. It's dark, atmospheric. It's definitely dreary. It's definitely not the feel-good movie of the year. It's it's no Free Guy. That's for sure. It's no Free Guy or Ted. It's no Free Guy or Ted Lasso. This is not something you're going to come out of and feel, other than just feeling like, okay, my life is not as crappy as these people in this film. But I think visually the cinematography is off the charts. I think Scott Cooper, who directed it, did such a great job. And these performances, Keri Russell's, I think, is amazing. And this little kid, I think, gives one of the best kid performances I've seen on screen since probably Sixth Sense. I think he's amazing in this role. And then there's like one part where they're checking him for bruises or whatever. Like, did they do CG on this little kid?
I hope so.
He looks so anemic in that scene. Maybe he's just naturally skinny, but and there's there's some great gore, some great creature effects, some really heartbreaking scenes. You could just see that he just loves his little brother so much, is trying to take care of him. It's like, oh my gosh, this is breaking my heart. And you just really see why he's trying to be strong despite everything around him just falling to shit. I don't know. I just thought this is a well-crafted film. It's one of my favorite horror films of the year. It's dark and dreary. It's a slow burn. Not everybody's going to like it, but I like the slow burn aspect of it because I think it's a great sort of kind of character study on these characters in this really dark, dreary, decimated town where everybody sort of seems to be, shit out of luck when it comes to, because there's even the part where Jesse Plemons is talking about how he's having to evict another family, and it's like, oh God.
It was heartbreaking too. Yeah.
So yeah, this gets at a 5 out of 5. This easy 5 out of 5. Nice. I was kind of worried. We've waited so long. Like, I think this was supposed to come out like April 2020, I think, or something like that.
Yep.
We've waited so long for it to come out, so you kind of worry, was this worth the wait? This is definitely worth the wait. May not be everybody's cup of tea, but this is my Code Red Mountain Dew or whatever you want to call it. It really, really amped me up. It really just, I was really impressed by the filmmaking in this. There's probably a lot of different scenes that I could probably say is my favorite scene in this, because there's so many things that stand out. But I will say, I think I mentioned it earlier, I kind of like the scene where they're watching the movie in the classroom,
Mm-hmm.
and she's looking at him, and you're wondering what he's doing, and he's whittling this monster out of wood. And because it's also correlates with the transformation that's happening in the house at the same time, I love that. It's just visually, I think, and I think that's the one thing that really stands out about this film more than anything, regardless of if it turns you off because of darkness or characters, that kind of stuff, is the storytelling and how it shows without saying, and this happens throughout the film visually. Um, and I think that there's some really wonderful, beautiful shots that really work well for telling the story, for making the creature creepy as fuck, and not have to show everything.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'll have to say probably that although there's a million different scenes I could probably pick, that's probably the one scene that kind of stood out to me because it's a nice little. I love that kind of thing where it's parallel to what's happening, in two different places.
Yeah, that really works. And there's a scene earlier where he's supposed to tell the young boy Lucas is supposed to tell a fairy tale, and he's reading it, but instead of reading it, it's told with just pictures, and then he's saying it out loud, making it up as he goes. It's really riveting. That could be an easy pick for a favorite scene too, and it's so this foreshadowing and all it's really really wonderful. Okay. I really did enjoy the film. I didn't enjoy it as much as you did, but that doesn't mean I didn't like it, because I really like this film, and I do think a lot more people should see it. I really am disappointed that it kind of got lost in the shuffle. It's a rough time. A lot of films are getting lost in the shuffle. If you're not a superhero film, you're not really getting caught at the moment, and that's unfortunate. It's the time. So I'm hoping a lot of people will catch this film later when it goes on VOD or on a streaming service, and finds an audience, because this film does some really wonderful things, and it may be easier to consume for most people at home than it is in the theater. Maybe I enjoyed it at the theater, but at the same time, I'm not really sure. It kind of left me a little flat with just how overbearingly, dour and downtrodden it was. How when you're heartbreaking. It's incredibly heartbreaking. And that could be timing, that could be mood. There's all kinds of things that can correlate with that. So I was giving it a 3.75. After the discussion, I'm inching toward a 4 because I'm remembering things I really liked about it, as opposed to the feeling that when you walk out the theater, like, oh my god, right? So the director is, everything is really great in this. So it's I feel like I'm hemming and hawing because I feel like I'm doing it a disservice by giving it a 3.75 or a 4, but it's definitely think people should catch this when they're able to. Favorite scene, if it's not the one I just mentioned, it's going to have to be the finale, because it it represents so much, and it has so much impact and emotion wrapped up into it. It really is quite extraordinary that you could say they stuck the landing if you want. The creature effects are wonderful. The weight of the decisions that they have, the conflict is palpable. You're really there. You're really in the moment, and you feel it. So I appreciated that. If not that, it would probably be the scene in the shed. One of the many scenes in the shed that scared the living bejesus out of me. You might know which one it is, but there you go. That is our review of Antlers.
Dun dun dun.
I know, playing now in theaters near you for the next few days. Catch you soon if you want to do that. Otherwise, look for it on it's not going to be Hulu probably, right? Because it's technically a Disney film now. But
I guess so. I don't know. Yeah. I would. definitely catch it, just to make up your own opinion, because you're probably going to hear divided reviews on it. And I mean, regardless if it's dreariness, it does have a, pardon the pun compared to the movie, but it does have a glowing heart to it. There's a heart.
Nice.
There's an underlying heart and an underlying spark to the humanity in this, because I think you have people who are trying to be hopeful in a hopeless situation, whether it's the teacher or the kid. And it's heartbreaking to watch, but I don't know. I think it's some great storytelling regardless.
Well, they did develop a really strong mythology, because there's signs, right? There's signs to this transformation, and you recognize those signs for a couple of characters that go through this film.
Yeah.
The glowing inner body, and you see the ribs and everything. It's really wonderful.
It's almost like a rated R ET.
Maybe.
Oh no!
You might have to back that up with some. Some more.
I just always think of the glowing heart ET has.
No.
But at the same time, it's not the same thing. But it would be funny. It's a crossover.
Antlers meets ET 2022 coming soon to a theater. Now, all right, Christopher, thank you for joining me. I'm so glad that you caught this film and were able to review it with me.
I know we've been talking about this for a long time, so I'm glad we can finally put it to bed and say, okay, we finally saw it. This is what we thought. So hopefully other people will see it and tell us what you thought too.
Yeah, it's one of those films. Of course, there's many films on it that were on our most anticipated films of the year twice, and that's a thing, right?
Yeah, it's sort of like the Rocky Horror, most anticipated. dot.
All right, let's say
thanks, pandemic.
Nah.
Good night, though.
Good night.